Today is my 60th birthday. They never really celebrated my birthdays before, but 2 weeks ago while helping my grandson tidy up his desk, I found a handmade card. On the front it said, "Happy birthday, Grandma." I pretended not to see it, but I couldn't help feeling a little hopeful. 60 is a milestone worth remembering. Even though no one had ever celebrated it for me in the past, I thought, maybe this time they wouldn't forget. I got up early and cleaned the entire house until it was spotless. After lunch I took a shower, curled my hair for the first time in ages, and put on my best-fitting navy blue dress. Then I sat in the living room waiting for them to come home from work. Only then did I realize, I forgot to ask which restaurant we were going to tonight. I sent a text to my son Brian. "Where are we going for dinner tonight?" He didn't reply, probably still in a meeting. I sent the same message to Emily and Richard. No response from either of them. Unable to sit still, I went back upstairs to reorganize the bedroom and closet. After fussing around for a while, I felt tired and leaned on the sofa, eventually falling asleep without noticing. When I woke up, it was already dark. I sat up suddenly and slapped my forehead. Had they gone ahead to the restaurant without me? I grabbed my phone ready to call, but all I saw were the messages I'd sent. No replies. No missed calls. I stared at the screen for a moment, then dialed Richard's number. "Hello?" I had just started speaking when he interrupted me. "What is it?" His tone was flat, like he was handling a business call. "I was wondering, where are you having dinner tonight?" "We're out. Just eat something at home or we can bring you something back." I didn't know what to feel. I was about to say, "Today is." "Richard, come cut the cake." A woman's voice came through the phone. I recognized it instantly. It was Lucy Wells, the woman who had disappeared from sight but never from his life. "If it's nothing urgent, let's talk later," he said, then hung up. The sound of the call ending echoed in my ears. I stood there holding the phone, stunned as if something had hit me hard. The lights in the room were still off. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the dark, until a rumble of thunder rolled outside the window. I picked up my phone and opened the social media app. Emily had helped me install it not long ago. I used it to record little moments of life at home. Right on the homepage I saw a new post. Lucy had uploaded a video. I tapped on it. On the screen, Richard, Brian, Emily, and my grandson Jack were sitting around a birthday cake, singing a birthday song to her. Their faces were full of joy, like a perfectly happy family. The caption read, "A warm birthday night with my loved ones." With trembling hands I turned up the volume. I played it again. Then again. And again. Jack's sweet voice calling Grandma, and that birthday song, one no one had ever sung for me, kept echoing in my ears. So that card wasn't for me. It was for another grandma. My husband, my son, my family, everything today had been for someone else. Not one of them remembered it was my birthday. No one but me. Then I noticed a menu in the video. I recognized it right away. It was from an upscale French restaurant downtown. The same place Richard used to choose whenever he entertained important clients. My vision blurred with tears. I couldn't hold it anymore. I started to cry. I had managed the household carefully, saved every penny, lived frugally for them, and they threw a grand birthday celebration for another woman. The husband I'd been married to for 40 years never remembered my birthday. But he always remembered hers. I grabbed my purse and rushed out the door, flagging down a cab and heading straight to that restaurant. It was rush hour, and the taxi crawled through traffic until it finally pulled up in front of the upscale French bistro downtown. As soon as I stepped out of the cab, I saw Richard and Lucy walking out of the restaurant hand in hand with Jack. Brian and Emily followed close behind, all of them smiling, looking every bit like a picture-perfect family. When Richard spotted me, a flicker of panic crossed his face, but he quickly masked it with his usual cold composure. "What are you doing here?" he asked with a hint of reproach in his voice. "Am I not allowed to be here?" I replied, my tone sharp and cool. Lucy immediately stepped in, her smile polite, her voice soft. "You must be May, right?" "Oh, I'm Lucy. Richard and Jack came to celebrate my birthday today. I actually asked them why you weren't here and they said you weren't feeling well, so you stayed home." She looked radiant, elegant and poised, easily passing for someone in her early 40s, not a woman in her 50s. Her makeup was subtle, her hair neatly styled, and her voice as gentle as her demeanor. Before I could respond, Jack suddenly pulled away from them and ran straight at me. "What are you doing here, you uneducated village woman?" he shouted. For a 7-year-old, he packed quite a punch. He slammed into my stomach, nearly knocking me off balance. Emily rushed over and pulled him back, frowning as she scolded, "Jack, you can't treat your grandma like that." "She's not my grandma." Jack screamed angrily. "She talks weird, she's not like us. I don't like her. I don't want her to be my grandma." I stood there frozen, his words slicing through me like a blade. A wave of fury and humiliation surged up so fast I couldn't contain it. I stormed over, grabbed Jack by the arm and gave him a hard smack on the backside. Jack immediately burst into loud, wailing sobs, drawing the attention of people walking by who stopped to stare. Emily, stunned, probably never having seen me lose my temper, stood frozen, unsure what to do. Brian suddenly rushed over, shoved me aside and scooped Jack into his arms. "Mom, what the hell are you doing? Do you have to make a scene here?" he snapped. I looked up at my son, saw the disgust in his eyes and felt something inside me shatter. This was the boy I had raised with all my love and care. I turned to Richard, not even sure what I was hoping for, maybe just to see if he still cared about me at all. He was about to speak when the restaurant manager appeared, clearly uncomfortable, gently suggesting we move to the lounge to settle our private matters. But Richard waved him off without hesitation. Avoiding my gaze, he rubbed his forehead and muttered, "Let's not make a bigger mess. Just go home." The irritation and superiority in his voice made me feel like I was just some pathetic woman making a public scene. Lucy chimed in again, her tone soft, almost consoling. "May, maybe you misunderstood. Yes, Richard and I had a relationship when we were young, but that was decades ago. We're just old friends now. He only came tonight because he thought I've been lonely since my husband passed. So, don't read too much into it." I took a deep breath, trying to swallow the fire rising in my chest. "Lucy, I didn't misunderstand anything. You don't need to explain. But if you don't mind, I need to speak privately with my family. Please give us some space." Kept my voice measured. I didn't want to air our dirty laundry in front of her. Even in this moment of fury, I refused to play the part of a bitter woman. But then Brian spoke up suddenly. "Daddy, take Lucy home. Mom will go with us." "Fine," Richard said. "Why?" I snapped before I could stop myself, Richard speaking at the same time. "She doesn't know the way home? Can't she call a cab like a normal person? Why do you have to personally escort her?" I knew my tone was harsh, my words sharp, but I had reached my limit. Like an overinflated balloon ready to burst, I needed somewhere to let it all out. "May, that's enough," Richard growled, brow furrowed. He let out a sigh and turned to Brian. "You take Lucy home. Jack and Emily will come with us." "I don't want to," Jack suddenly shouted, latching onto Lucy. "I want to ride with Grandma Lucy. I don't want to be with that old boring grandma." "Jack." Emily shot me an apologetic glance and tried to pull him away, but he wriggled free again. After all the chaos, we finally got into the car. I sat in the front passenger seat. Emily and Jack were in the back. Just as I reached for the window button to get some air, Richard silently rolled the window back up. "The wind's too strong. Jack might catch a cold," he said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. I withdrew my hand without a word. The car sank into a heavy silence. Several minutes passed before Richard finally spoke. "May, your behavior today was completely inappropriate." Just like that, a few words and he'd passed judgment, neatly and decisively. I leaned back in the seat, saying nothing. Not a word left my mouth until the car pulled into the garage. My voice was hoarse when I finally spoke, so faint I barely recognized it as my own. "Emily, you think I was wrong too, don't you?" She didn't answer. But through the rearview mirror, I caught the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. That weak, evasive silence was more cutting than any spoken response. I let out a quiet laugh. I didn't even know why, just that everything suddenly felt absurd, almost comical. I had poured 40 years into this family and in the end, not a single one of them remembered it was my birthday. "We're home. Let's get out," Richard said, turning off the engine and calling for Emily and Jack to get out of the car. When I didn't move, he sighed, came around to open my door and reached out to help me. I brushed his hand away. He looked like he was about to say something when Brian's car pulled up beside us. He stormed over, his voice already raised. "Why are you still here? Mom, what exactly do you want? We knew you'd make a scene, so we didn't even plan to take you. It's not like Dad and Lucy were off having some private dinner. We just celebrated her birthday together. What's the big deal? His words hit like a bucket of cold water straight to my face. The fire in my chest reignited instantly. I slapped him hard, across the face. May. How could you hit Brian? Emily cried out. May. Have you lost your mind? Richard shouted in fury. You can't hit my dad. Jack jumped in front of Brian, arms spread wide like he was ready to defend him from me. The three of them rushed forward, shielding Brian as if I were some lunatic on the verge of a breakdown. Brian held his cheek, eyes wide in shock. I had never laid a hand on him before, not once in his life. I had always been the gentle mother. Of course he couldn't comprehend it. My palms still stung. I stared coldly at their faces, each one of them different, yet all the same, and said, my voice biting and sharp. You ungrateful people. My tone was so bitter, so cutting it startled Brian. He stammered, Mom. Richard's face darkened further. He glared at me, voice like ice. May, this is beyond ridiculous. You already embarrassed yourself in public and now you're hitting your own son at home. You're almost 60, can you stop acting so irrational? I actually laughed when I heard that. Not almost 60, I said, pausing deliberately, my voice steady and clear. I am 60. Today. And with that I turned and walked upstairs, leaving them all behind without so much as a glance. When I got home I went straight to the bedroom and locked the door behind me. I took off my clothes and stood under a hot shower, scrubbing my face clean, but no amount of water could wash away the heaviness pressing on my chest. Soon there was a knock at the door. May, open up. It's me. Richard's voice. I grabbed a pillow and pulled it over my head. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear anything at all. Just then my phone buzzed. I reached for it instinctively, unlocked the screen, and saw a message from Lucy. I opened it. May, I honestly thought Richard had told you about today. Brian and Emily were both coming, so I assumed you knew. Besides, we've celebrated together the past few years, so I didn't think you'd misunderstand. There's really nothing going on between me and Richard. Please don't be upset. My eyes locked on that one line. We've celebrated together the past few years. The past few years. I froze for a second, then started typing. Are you saying they've celebrated your birthday with you every year before this too? Her reply came quickly. Yes, ever since my husband passed away, Richard spent nearly every birthday with me. After Jack was born, Brian and Emily would come too. Reading that message, the fire that had been burning so fiercely inside me just went out. Like someone had pulled the oxygen from the room. It didn't even turn to smoke, just cold, lifeless ash. I felt ridiculous. Pathetic even. I almost laughed. My husband had been celebrating his ex's birthday for 10 straight years. My son had been joining them for 7. Me. I had been part of this family for 40 years and not once had anyone remembered my birthday. I thought back to when I was younger, before marriage. Every year on my birthday my parents would cook me a warm bowl of pasta and make hot cocoa, sometimes with a few candies placed gently on the side of the bowl. Simple gestures, but they made me feel seen. My father worked the night shift at the factory. My mother was a cook in the hospital cafeteria. They were exhausted every single day, but they never let a birthday go unnoticed. Not mine, not my sister's. No. In this so-called family, even a happy birthday felt like asking too much. Richard and I had met through a mutual friend. We got married just 3 months later. He had just left a stable job to start his own business and I threw myself into supporting him, managing everything at home so he could focus on his career. In the early years he still remembered my birthday. When he came back from business trips he'd bring small gifts, a silk scarf, a watch. I'd always tuck them away carefully, thinking they were little symbols of our marriage. But then, nothing. It all stopped. I opened Lucy's social media account. Emily had shown me how to check a user's posts. I scrolled through photo after photo, video after video. Richard taking her hiking in the mountains. Richard picking apples with her on a farm. Helping her with real estate paperwork. Finding her an accountant to handle her taxes. Replacing her light bulbs. Driving her to her community dance classes. And birthday videos, year after year. Cakes, gifts, songs, family photos. Richard in nearly every frame. Someone looked at those pictures without context, they'd think she was his wife. I kept scrolling, punishing myself with every post, not even knowing how long I'd been at it. My eyes burned with dryness. My head ached. I took off my reading glasses and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts a tangled mess. The anger that had been boiling earlier had hollowed out, leaving only a heavy, aching pressure in my chest and throat. I could barely breathe. I had no more tears left to cry. All I could do was breathe, in and out, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. But my chest felt like it had a hole torn right through it. And the cold just kept seeping in wave after wave until I couldn't stop shivering. I didn't know when I'd fallen asleep. By the time I opened my eyes again, daylight had already filled the room. I sat up abruptly, a flicker of panic tightening in my chest. Had I overslept? I hadn't even made breakfast yet. Instinctively, I began reaching for clothes, ready to head downstairs and start cooking. But then, like a crashing wave, the memories of yesterday came flooding back. My hands froze mid-motion. I stood there, stiff and unmoving. It hit me then, clearer than ever. I wasn't a wife, a mother, or a respected elder in this house anymore. I was nothing more than a well-trained live-in housekeeper. A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. A knock sounded at the door. Richard's voice followed. "May, breakfast is ready. Come down and eat." I didn't respond. I just dragged myself to the bathroom, moving slowly under the weight of everything I felt. By the time I opened the door again, Richard was gone. I went downstairs. Just as I reached the kitchen doorway, Brian appeared in front of me, holding a carefully decorated birthday cake with 6 candles flickering on top. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mom." Richard, Brian, and Emily were all singing, their faces beaming with smiles, as if last night's disaster had never happened. "Come on, Mom, make a wish and blow out the candles," Brian said brightly, holding the cake out to me, his eyes sparkling like he was still that little boy curled up in my arms. For some reason, the sight of his smiling face made my eyes well up instantly. I turned away, walked to the fridge, and poured myself a glass of cold milk. The icy liquid slid down my throat and settled in my stomach, dulling the sharp ache inside me just a little. "Mom, we all took the morning off today just to celebrate your birthday properly," Brian said, placing the cake on the dining table. His voice tried to stay calm, though his face already showed hints of impatience. "Can you please stop being mad?" I didn't know how to face any of them. I grabbed a piece of bread and started to head back upstairs, but Richard reached out and grabbed my arm. "May, we all made mistakes last night. You can't just keep freezing everyone out." The moment he said that, my barely suppressed emotions ignited again. I stared at him, my voice low but steady. "What exactly do you mean by, we all made mistakes? Are you saying I was wrong to show up and interrupt your happy little family celebration?" "You haven't celebrated your birthday in years," he said flatly. "It's understandable we forgot. Do you really need to make it such a big deal?" "Exactly," Brian chimed in. "Mom, you're really blowing this out of proportion. Lucy would never cause a scene like this." The way they said it, with such certainty, such self-righteousness, made my stomach turn. I suddenly rushed to the sink and gagged, the milk I just swallowed coming right back up. Emily hurried over to steady me. "May, don't be upset. We promise, we'll celebrate properly next year, okay? Please don't be sad anymore." I gently pushed her hand away and turned my gaze toward Brian. "If you love Lucy so much," I said quietly, "why don't you let her be your mother instead? Can you stop this insanity already? Do you even hear yourself?" Brian snapped, voice rising. "You sound ridiculous." Then Richard lost control, something I'd almost never seen in our 40 years of marriage. He'd always been cold, detached, unemotional. But the moment Lucy's name came up, he unraveled. It wasn't that he couldn't show emotion. He just never had any for me. Brian seemed taken aback by his father's outburst and fell silent for a moment. But I strangely felt calmer than ever. The rage, the humiliation, the hurt, all of it faded away. What remained was something quieter, something heavier. A kind of hollow, bone-deep exhaustion I couldn't put into words. 40 years of marriage. Decades of devotion. And in that moment it all felt like nothing at all. "I'm not crazy and I'm not speaking nonsense," I said calmly, looking Richard straight in the eyes. "I want a divorce." "Divorce?" Brian exploded. "Mom, are you out of your mind? At your age, you want to start throwing around divorce like it's some game? You think you can just walk away from Dad and be fine? You think there's some man out there still waiting for someone like you?" Richard hadn't even said a word yet, but Brian was already firing off every insult he could muster. rapid and sharp, each one cutting deeper than the last. If this had been the old me, I might have broken down, blamed myself, questioned whether I was being irrational, maybe even cried. But now I just felt tired. Tired and disgusted. The marital assets will be split fairly. The children are grown, so custody isn't an issue. I'll have my lawyer draft the divorce agreement and send it to you. Richard's jaw tightened, his brow furrowed so deeply it was like a knot carved into his face. I could see he was angry, but what stood out even more was the annoyance, the pure exasperation in his expression. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't regretful. He was just irritated. May, you're 60 years old. Don't you think this whole act is a bit pathetic? I suggest you calm down. I'm flying to Seattle this week for a business trip. I won't be back until the conference ends. Hopefully by the time I return, you'll have come to your senses. He grabbed his coat and walked out without another word, didn't even glance back. Didn't leave me a single moment to respond. And I didn't care to stop him. There was nothing left to say between us, only exhaustion. Mom, I don't get you, Brian muttered behind me. We sang happy birthday, we brought out a cake. Gave you a chance to move past everything. But no, you just had to keep pushing it. Are you happy now? You made Dad leave. I never asked you to do any of that, I said without looking back, then turned and walked upstairs to my room. Back in the room, I began packing my things. After a quick round of sorting, I realized it was time to start planning for what came next. I picked up my phone and searched for a legal advice channel I'd been following. The host was a woman in her 40s, a lawyer who specialized in helping women in difficult situations. Her advice was always clear and approachable. I'd stumbled upon her channel while scrolling through social media one day, and ever since I'd often tuned in to listen. Following the steps Emily had once taught me, I wrote her an email and also called the law office listed on her channel homepage to schedule a consultation. Then I went back to packing. When I finished, I looked around and realized, in this house I'd lived in for 40 years, everything I truly owned could fit into one suitcase and a small backpack. I took the gold and silver jewelry Richard had given me over the years, along with the household bank card I'd always managed. I planned to visit the bank later and transfer the entire balance into the account I'd opened before marriage. My personal savings weren't much, but I'd handled every household expense all these years, budgeting down to the cent. I had always saved with Brian in mind, for emergencies for his future. Now looking back, he probably never cared about that money at all. So if that's the case, then I have every right to take it back for myself. I rolled my suitcase out the door of the home I'd lived in for 4 decades and took a cab to a modest old-fashioned hotel downtown, a place I used to pass by in my younger days. It had always struck me as quiet and comforting. After checking in, I headed straight to the law office to meet the attorney. She looked a bit surprised when she saw me. After all, not every 60-year-old woman shows up declaring she's ready to start over. But there was no judgment in her expression. No patronizing advice. No talk of thinking twice. She listened carefully as I laid out my situation, took notes on every detail and offered clear, professional legal guidance. I signed the engagement agreement on the spot and paid the retainer. She scheduled a formal contract signing for the next day. As I stood up to leave, I couldn't help asking, "Don't you think I'm being ridiculous? Getting divorced at 60? Claire looked at me, her voice warm but firm. May, if a woman decides to walk away at 60, it means she's already endured far more than she should have. She said it gently, almost casually, but it made my throat tighten. I had to blink hard to keep my eyes from tearing up. After leaving the law office, I stopped by the train station. With the help of a ticket agent, I bought a one-way ticket back to my hometown in Portland. I found a small roadside diner and ordered a cheeseburger just to fill my stomach, then returned to the hotel. After years of constant busyness, the sudden stillness felt strange, like a void I didn't know how to fill. As I stepped into the hotel lobby, the front desk clerk greeted me with a cheerful smile. "You're back early today." "Got everything taken care of, so I thought I'd come back and rest," I replied. "Not here on vacation?" she asked casually. "You seem so independent. Don't have any friends around here to meet up with?" Her simple question caught me off guard. For a moment I just stood there, stunned by the realization. In these 40 years, I hadn't made a single true friend. My entire life, every thought, every effort had revolved around that house. I never even built a circle of my own. I gave a small, bitter smile and shook my head. I don't have any friends. She laughed playfully. That's okay. You can always make new ones. My mom just started taking classes at a senior center. She's made a bunch of new friends, even started dating again. Senior center? I asked. What kind of classes? Oh, all kinds. Photography, pottery, dance, flower arranging, even travel clubs. It's actually pretty cool. Most community centers in the city have programs like that. You should check them out when you get home. I nodded and quietly tucked the idea inside of my heart. One thing I'd always regretted was never going to college. Growing up, my family didn't have the means. I went straight to work after high school, never giving myself the chance to keep studying. Then came marriage, then responsibilities, and life just got busier and busier, until the thought of learning again simply faded away. But now the world has changed so much. Without an education, without the ability to keep learning, it's truly hard to survive independently in today's society. I spent the entire afternoon chatting with the young receptionist in the hotel lobby. Time passed quietly, and somehow, all that heaviness I'd been carrying started to lift. Before it even got dark, my phone rang. It was Emily. I picked up. On the other end, she asked, "May, you're not home? Are you coming back for dinner tonight? Do you want me to make something for you?" "I've moved out, Emily. You all go ahead and eat without me tonight." I didn't wait for her to say anything else, I simply ended the call. I was calmer now, but there was still a flicker of frustration simmering beneath the surface. I picked up my phone again and turned to the front desk clerk. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "can you help me block some contacts? I don't really know how to do it." "Of course. Who do you want to block? Phone calls or social media?" she asked, cheerful as ever. "All of it," I said firmly. She patiently guided me through the steps, showing me how to block numbers and remove people from my contacts, then how to manage my blocked list in case I ever changed my mind. When we were done, I thanked her with a smile and bought her a cup of coffee. In return, she even taught me how to order pizza online. We shared a pizza together before I went back upstairs to my room. The moment I walked in, the phone rang again, this time from an unfamiliar number. I answered, and my son's voice came through. "Mom, come on, stop being so dramatic. Just come home already. If you come back now, I won't tell Dad you ran away. But you better unblock us. Enough of this nonsense. If you keep this up and Dad really gets mad and divorces you, then what? You gonna live on the street?" "Brian," I said calmly, "take care of your own life. If you want to tell your father, go right ahead." And with that, I hung up. In the days that followed, neither Brian nor Emily reached out again. I worked closely with my attorney to finalize the divorce agreement and had the papers mailed directly to the house. After some thought, I removed Richard from my blocked list and sent him a message. "The divorce agreement has been sent. Please sign it as soon as you receive it. Once the documents are finalized, let me know. We can go to court together to file the paperwork." He didn't respond. Once everything was in place and with my attorney's warm wishes, I began preparing to return to my hometown. The moment I stepped back into the old house where I'd grown up, I was surprised by the sense of safety that washed over me. I spent the entire day cleaning it from top to bottom, clearing out the dust and tossing away worn-out furniture that had no place in this new chapter of life. The next morning, I took a cab to the nearest furniture store and picked out some new pieces. Everything could now be delivered and installed right at home, so convenient that I didn't have to struggle at my age to drag heavy things piece by piece. When the delivery crew finished setting up and left, I looked around at the refreshed space, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of true hope for the life ahead. I'd been so busy for days that I didn't expect the message when it came. "Richard, when are you coming back?" Pulled. Detached. The same way he'd always been. That was how things had worked between us for 40 years. Every time we argued, he would disappear for a few days, then return acting like nothing ever happened, calling it, giving me time to cool down. Back then, I thought that was how marriage worked. Someone had to yield. Whenever he casually resumed conversation, I took it as a sign of reconciliation and let everything slide. Looking back now, I realize how foolish that was. I didn't bother explaining anything this time. I simply replied, "Contact me after you've signed the divorce papers." Richard never responded again. I knew he still believed he could wear me down the way he always had. With silence, with absence, with emotional distance. That I'd eventually give in like I always did. But I didn't. I didn't care anymore. Instead, I turned toward my new life. I reached out to the local community center, and with the help of one of the staff members, I signed up for classes at the senior learning program. Walking into that bright, spacious building, I realized something I'd never understood before. Life in the second half doesn't have to be just kitchens, households, and endless compromise. It can also be filled with music, laughter, crafts, and discovery. I enrolled in a baking class, a choir group, an introductory English course, and even a computer skills workshop. Mornings were spent in class, afternoons in hands-on practice, and some evenings chatting and gathering with new classmates. For the first time, life had rhythm, and I was genuinely fulfilled. The kitchen and stove that had once trapped me in repetition and sacrifice began fading from my memory piece by piece. I even started learning how to care for myself again. I tried on clothes I never would have dared to wear before. I went to the salon and got a modern perm, something fresh and playful. I made friends, lots of them. A retired army vet from my baking class, a warm-spirited woman in the choir group, and my computer class instructor, a young man named Sam who couldn't have been more than 30. That night, choir rehearsal ran later than usual, and by the time I got home it was nearly 9. As I walked up to the front door, I saw Richard leaning against the porch column, looking tired and worn out. I glanced at him but said nothing, stepping past him to take my keys from my bag. Once inside, I poured myself a glass of warm water to soothe my throat before finally speaking. "What are you doing here?" "I came to take you home," he said. "This is my home," I replied calmly. "Did you sign the divorce papers?" "May," he sighed, rubbing his temples, clearly exhausted. "We're not young anymore. Do we really need to keep dragging this out?" "Sign the papers. If you don't, I'll file for divorce through the court." "File for divorce? On what grounds? I haven't abused you. I haven't cheated. What exactly are you going to sue me for?" I raised my phone, my voice steady. "I've backed up every social media post from the past 10 years, yours and Lucy's. I've already had them notarized. They can serve as indirect evidence of infidelity." "I didn't cheat," he shouted, unable to contain his anger anymore. I looked at the twisted expression on his face and suddenly let out a quiet laugh. "Whether or not you cheated isn't for you to decide. That's for a judge. You know what's truly ironic? I'm your legal wife and there's not a single decent photo of us together. But her entire profile is filled with pictures of you." Richard stared at me, his face hardening, his patience clearly gone. "You're just a housewife with a high school diploma. No career, no experience. Do you really think you can live a decent life without me? Am I not living decently now?" I shot back, my voice cold. "This past month, without you, has been the happiest month of my life. I found a lawyer on my own, got on a train, cleaned out my old home and started rebuilding my life piece by piece. Richard, you've looked down on me for years, haven't you?" I stepped closer, staring into the face I'd known for 40 years. The contempt, the condescension, it was so clear now. Why had I never seen it before? "Richard, you've always thought I wasn't good enough for you, didn't you? So why did you marry me in the first place? You just wanted a housekeeper, someone to manage your life so you could focus on your career. Did you ever, even for a moment, see me as your wife?" His face darkened further, but he tried to shift the conversation. "I didn't treat you badly, did I? Did I ever make you suffer? You never had to work a day in your life. You lived comfortably without earning a cent. Most women would envy you. Comfortably." I gave a bitter laugh. "Try living it yourself. Up before dawn every day to cook breakfast, running in circles around pots and pans, washing your clothes, doing your son's laundry, cooking for the whole family, cleaning every corner of the house. Have you ever washed your own dirty socks? Your underwear? You think this house stayed clean on its own? You think the trash just disappeared? If you call that a good life, then by all means, go live it. But I'm done." "All that over a little housework?" he muttered, clearly annoyed. "That's right," I snapped, voice firm and hoarse. "Yes, it's too much for me. I'm done being your unpaid housemaid. At least real maids get a paycheck and they can quit when they want. Me. I spent 40 years serving your family for nothing, only to be criticized and dismissed. Well, I quit." Richard stood speechless, jaw clenched, face cold. "You're being ridiculous," he finally muttered. "Perfect. Then you can leave now. You have 1 week to sign the papers, or I'll file the lawsuit myself." I shut the door in his face, and only then did I feel like I could finally breathe again. I truly thought that after how fierce our argument had been that night, Richard would finally sign the divorce papers and be done with it. But to my surprise, 1 week later he showed up at my door with Brian, Emily and Jack in tow, making a scene right in front of the neighbors. To avoid more gossip, I reluctantly let them in. The moment they stepped inside, Jack ran straight into my arms, bursting into tears. "Grandma, I missed you so much. I got sick a few days ago, had a fever. I wanted your brownie cake. I really missed you." I gently pulled him away. "I have plans tonight. Ask your parents to make dinner." Jack looked stunned. He glanced at Brian, then slowly retreated into Emily's arms. That's when Brian finally spoke up. "Mom, we came today to take you home. Jack's been sick twice since you left. Once from a cold, the other from an allergic reaction. He's lost weight. Emily and I, we're not good at taking care of him. Do you really want him to suffer like this?" I cut him off. "Of course I do. Jack is your child, not mine. I raised you. I did my job as a mother. Now it's your turn to be a father." Then I turned to Richard. "Did you sign the papers? If not, I'm filing the lawsuit this week." "Mom, please don't get upset," Brian said quickly. "We've really been thinking things over. I admit we were wrong. Forgetting your birthday was our fault. We're truly sorry. I even talked to Dad. He promised there will be no more contact with Lucy. We'll make sure your birthdays are celebrated properly from now on. Every single year." "That's right, May," Emily chimed in. "Every marriage has misunderstandings. Richard really does care about you. He was the one who insisted we come pick you up today." I looked at her. No anger, just quiet exhaustion. Emily was a gentle person, but the kind who subtly pushes responsibilities onto others, especially onto the elders in the house. She had never truly seen things from my side. She just wanted everything to move along in smooth, quiet harmony. So I looked her in the eyes and asked, "Emily, if one day Brian reconnects with his high school sweetheart after her husband dies, starts feeling sorry for her, takes her hiking, traveling, helps with her errands, changes her light bulbs, handles her paperwork, and then celebrates her birthday for 10 straight years, bringing your child along too, would you be okay with that?" Her expression changed instantly. She had no answer. Of course she couldn't accept that. And that meant she had no right to expect me to. I continued, "You didn't come here because you truly understood your mistakes. You came because you finally realized that without your housekeeper, this house doesn't run so smoothly." I turned to Brian. "That's probably the dirtiest pair of shoes you've ever worn, isn't it? No one to clean them, they don't magically shine themselves." Then to Richard. "That shirt is a wrinkled mess. Been wearing it for days, haven't you? Finally figured out that clothes don't come out of the wash neatly pressed. You actually have to iron them." And then to Emily. "Starting to realize that raising a child isn't exactly a relaxing hobby? It's exhausting, thankless, and never-ending." As my words landed, the room fell into silence. No one said a word. They just sat there, heads bowed. And me, I had never felt more certain. Richard cleared his throat, his voice rough, a worn-out look settling over his face. "May, we didn't realize how much you've done. We took everything for granted. But we're ready to do better. I'll help with the housework. I'll cut off all ties with Lucy. Can you find it in your heart to forgive us?" "No," I said without hesitation. "There's nothing left to talk about. If that's all, please leave. I have plans tonight. Mom, if you go through with this divorce, how are you going to live on your own? Who's going to take care of you when you're old? Who's going to help you if you get sick?" Brian asked, clearly panicking. I couldn't help but laugh. I thought of a video I'd watched during one of my recent online classes and replied, "As long as I can breathe, I'll live. When I'm old, I'll go to a nursing home. If I get really sick, then I'll just leave the world without any other regret." And just like that, our conversation ended in cold silence. As they turned to leave, Jack paused at the door and looked back at me. "Grandma, Mom said you don't want Grandpa anymore. Does that mean I won't have a grandma now?" I smiled faintly and said, "Didn't you say you liked Lucy Grandma more? Ask Grandpa to marry her, she'll be your new grandma." Jack's face lit up. "Yay. Lucy Grandma can be my new grandma." He ran out happily, leaving me watching his little figure disappear down the path. And with that, the last thread tying me to that house finally broke. Children don't say things like that on their own. Someone taught him. Whether it was Lucy or Richard, it didn't matter anymore. Now, alone, I felt nothing but freedom. After Richard returned home, he signed the divorce papers shortly after, without any more argument. He even offered me a larger portion of our shared assets. I didn't refuse. I took everything without hesitation. A month later, I held the finalized divorce certificate in my hands. Soon after, I taught myself how to shoot and edit videos on my phone and started a baking channel online. I didn't have fancy editing skills, but people were drawn to the charm of an older woman sharing her homemade recipes. My age and my baking experience gave me a small but loyal following. Over time, my circle of friends expanded, from fellow retirees to a surprising number of younger people who loved to learn from me and chat about life. Eventually, I heard that Richard and Lucy had finally gotten together. But things didn't go the way they'd expected. Lucy had no talent for housekeeping and couldn't manage the household. Instead of her easing into the family ended up adjusting around her. She tried helping with Jack but ended up giving him food that triggered a serious allergy. He had to be hospitalized. After that incident, Brian packed up and moved out with Emily and Jack for good. Not long after, Richard was diagnosed with cancer. He underwent surgery and was confined to bed during recovery. And soon after his diagnosis, Lucy filed for divorce, taking half of Richard's assets with her when she left. Now Richard is recovering at home. Emily, in order to care for him and Jack, left her job and became a full-time homemaker. I learned all this through occasional messages Emily still sends me. Casual updates, bits of conversation. When she told me she had quit her job, I said just one thing. I don't judge the choices you're making now. But if you ever want to start over, it's never too late. Yes. It wasn't until I turned 60 that I finally learned to love myself. And only then did I begin living the life I had postponed for 40 years.